Isekai.
Rebirth of the Malicious Empress of Military Lineage. Chapter 79, Pregnant, Part 2. Eldest sister must not move too. Shin Miao said blandly, one cannot point for certain if the assailant is mixed into the crowd. When the imperial physician arrive, eldest sister's pulse would be taken on the spot, else if the movement affected the body energy, one would be afraid that there will be a problem. Ren Wanyun did not have time to speak when Emperor Wenhua nodded and said, yes. Maintain the original scene. That one sentence had sealed all possibilities. To let the imperial physician to diagnose Shen King under the eyes of everyone in the hall, meant to say that Shen King's pregnancy would be disclosed to all the civil and military officials. Thinking about this, Ren Wanyun's body could not stop trembling, and her fear finally spread to Shen King. As Shen King endured the pain, her heart was filled up with panic. Mother, do not. But what could Ren Wanyun do? Emperor Wenhua had spoken and she could not just resist it. She was only a married woman and naturally could play unreasonably in the inner courtyard, but in front of the Emperor, Empress and hundreds of officials, Ren Wanyun was overwhelmed. She raised her head up and looked towards the direction of Shen Gui, hoping that he would help her, but when she saw Shen Gui's expression, there was only anger and blame in his eyes. In a moment, Ren Wanyun's hands and feet were ice cold and her heart sank into deep despair. Even the comforting arms that were embracing Shen King fell onto the ground. What is with that Shen of yours? Feng Anning said at Shen Miao's ears. Why does she look like she is afraid? Shen Miao smiled. Luo Zuyan also frowned. Ren Wanyun was behaving abnormally, which made her felt somewhat strange. However, she was unable to think of why, and instead looked towards the direction of Chen Rikayu and Shen Yu, who were at the side. Shen Yu was shocked by Shen King's appearance and clinged onto Chen Rikayu's clothes with some panic, as Chen Rikayu also stared at Ren Wanyun unblinkingly. Being with Ren Wanyun as a sister-in-law for so many years, Chen Rikayu naturally knew that her second Sao was one who was able to cope with any scene, and there could only be one reason for today's gaffe, which was that she was caught in her trick. Shen Yu whispered, eldest sister is not really poisoned, right? Mother, is it fifth younger sister? Chen Rikayu stopped her severely and could not help but look at Shen Miao. She was separated by a few people and was unable to see Shen Miao's eyes clearly, but the corners of those lips were hooked up, to which Chen Rikayu could not help but feel fearful. Her intuition was that Shen Miao must be involved in what happened today. But Shen Miao was so daring enough to even place poison in the palace? In any case, Shen King's reputation could no longer be protected. Prince Yu's face also turned serious with the sudden change of situation. Even though his actions were absurd, he knew the priority of matter, and at this time it was not a good time to mention the stuff before. A sarcastic smile floated on his lips. Today Shen Miao escaped. No matter if Shen Miao poisoned Shen King or not, was not Shen Miao's thoughts overly simple to think if this matter could hold him down? After this situation, he could still mention the matter to Emperor Wenhua. For some situations it was useless to try to escape. The imperial physician quickly rushed over, but the unexpected thing was that the imperial physician in the palace were mostly elderly people, as they could enter the imperial medical institution after accumulating rich experiences. But the one who came over was an imperial physician who was just over 20 years of age and was rather handsome, which made some young ladies' eyes look straight at him. When Shen Miao saw this imperial physician, her heart went thump and she carefully sized that imperial physician up. The young imperial physician carried the medical box and greeted the emperor and empress before walking over to Ren Wanyun's side. Ren Wanyun still wanted to block, but heard the imperial physician saying, "May fear and please release Shen young lady." This humble self would take Shen young lady's pulse. His voice was very pleasant, which made one feel comfortable. Under the watchful eyes of everyone and the emperor's sharp eyes, Ren Wanyun dared not do anything else. Shen King was in so much pain that she fainted, so she took 2 steps back and watched as the imperial physician extended 2 fingers out to take Shen King's pulse. Just when Shen Miao was preoccupied with looking at that imperial physician, Suddenly Feng Anning joking voice was in her ears. It cannot be that you also fancy that imperial physician? If you fancy him, your eyesight is not bad. Shin Miao was slightly stunned and asked, you know him? Oh? Feng Anning was surprised. This is your first time talking to me with interest on this kind of things. Never mind, I am merciful to tell you about it. This imperial physician is a new physician that entered the Imperial Medical Institution, and his skills are exceptional as he could cure Consort Da's inherited heart condition. His Majesty held him in high regards and made an exception for him to enter the Imperial Medical Institution. Now he is the youngest official in the Imperial Medical Institution and has a good appearance, so many young ladies like him. Shin Miao said, you like too? How can I possibly like him? Feng Anning stretched her neck. Even though his medical skills are high and he is good looking, he is just an imperial physician and does not have any family or clan support. How would such a person be compatible with my family? Even it is you can only take a fancy, it would still be not mutually compatible. Feng Anning had been spoiled by her family and was convinced that her husband would be a world-shaking man. A small little imperial physician was not worth it in her eyes. What is his name? Shin Miao asked. Could it be that you really like him? Feng Anning suspiciously looked at Shin Miao before saying, Jiao Yang. But in the official families in the Ding capital, there is no high-ranking families with the Jiao name. This was indicating that this Jiao Yang was not from a big family. Shen Miao watched that young imperial physician and even ignored Shen King and Ren Wanyan. There were some fluctuations in her heart as Shen Miao discovered that this Jiao Yang gave her a familiar feeling, as if she had seemed to know him from somewhere before. But in the previous Imperial Medical Institution, she did not see anyone by the name of Jiao Yang. Not at the Imperial Medical Institution, but where did she see him from? As she was pondering, Jiao Yang had already finished taking the pulse. When he turned over, his eyes met with Shen Miao's eyes that were sizing him up. He was also slightly stunned, but he soon recovered and cupped his hands in obeisance to Ren Wanyan. Imperial Physician Jiao. The Empress said, is the young lady from the Shen family poisoned? Jiao Yang looked at the fainted Shen King and looked over at Ren Wanyan's pale face before cupping his hands and said, answering to your ladyship's words, young lady from the Shen family was not poisoned. She only consumed lotus tea. After pausing, he continued, the tea that Shen young lady consumed did not have poison and Shen young lady was not poisoned. Oh? Emperor Wenhui looked at Shen King. Since it is not poison, then how did it turn out to this? Answering your majesty, Jiao Yang sighed. Lotus tea is naturally cold and it would be alright if ordinary people consume it. But for those who are pregnant, the consumption would affect the fetus energy. The young lady from the Shen family is already pregnant. Shen family young lady was already pregnant. When the words were out, everyone was suddenly up in an uproar. Shen Gui's mouth dropped and instantly was purplish red. He looked furiously over at Ren Wanyan and the latter only fell onto the ground despondently. Good. The one that spoke out was however that Huang Furen. She stood up suddenly and did not care about where she was and pointed at Ren Wanyan to curse. You reach an engagement with our Huang family and want our Huang family to marry a used Chu and raise others' son. Ren Wanyan, you are so shameless. Everyone was up in an uproar because of Huang Furen's words. The engagement between Shen King and the Huang family was spread widely and disclosing the pregnancy in front of the civil and military officials today. What kind of logic was this? An unmarried decent young lady was pregnant. Was it an illicit relationship? To even think of marrying into the Huang family pregnant? Since ancient times, this was a first in Mingqi. Ren Wanyan still did not move. Her entire body seemed to have lost its strength and she could only crawl to Shen King's side and embrace her. Shen Furen, Bingong also want to know what is this exactly about? Sitting high above, the Empress said coldly,